Good evening. This is Maestro with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Fedrid Folly. Our first player is going to be Crewfinity, playing as the Orc Warboss, tanky melee hero that disrupts with his Angry Bits charge, can walk through cover, but can be suppressed. His opponent is going to be Gordian Vorenthul, playing as the Chaos Lord. Yet another tanky melee hero. This one cannot be suppressed, can also walk through cover. A little on the slow side, though. I know it's been a while, been busy, but here's a cast, so let's get ready. 1v1 here. These are, we've got the Warboss and the Chaos Lord. This is very much a classic matchup in the sense that the Warboss and the Chaos Lord are definitely some of the most popular heroes in Dawn of War 2, kind of just over the course of the life of the game. So just by virtue of them being more popular heroes, this is definitely a more commonly played matchup. I have absolutely no statistics whatsoever to back that up because there's really, at least as far as I know, no way of actually collecting data on how many times this hero has been, the heroes have been picked. But it's just been my perception from both playing and casting. Warboss and Chaos Lord, I feel that they are, in some ways, just very fundamental. A little bit more straightforward than the other choices for their race, and so are commonly played. Sluggers right here going to be approaching the Chaos Space Marines. I feel like the Chaos Space Marines should just take that fight, especially if Heretics are there. I mean, these are 60% health Sluggers. Yeah, I mean, eventually he backs them up into the Heretics anyway. He loses 2 Heretic models in the process, kills 3 Sluggers. I think he didn't even need to kite away with the Chaos Space Marines. I guess the Chaos Space Marines take no damage, so there's no risk of them losing models, which is more expensive. But I guess in the end of the day, he won the fight anyway, and I'm kind of just nitpicking, you know, micro decisions here. We can see the Warboss, though, currently taking the attention of 3 different units, and this is part of what the Warboss does here. He does have to be very careful because he is still in here with low health, but he gets an armor upgrade right in the middle of the fight, and that makes it pretty much impossible for the Heretics to continue to fight against him. In general, Heretics don't want to be fighting a unit like the Chaos Lord unless he's almost on the verge of dying, which might have been what Gordian was looking for since the Warboss was low on hit points, 20%-ish. But then he got an upgrade in the middle of the fight. Now that does 2 things. First of all, it gives him a health increase right in the middle of the fight. And then the spiky armor that he chose to get returns damage to squads that attack, or units that attack the Warboss in melee. And against a squishy squad like Heretics, that's just going to rip them apart. Havoc's brought out for Gordian Vorenthul. Generally the most common purchase that you make with Chaos in Tier 1 as far as your Tier 1.5 units. Flexible because you get the ability, first of all, it's the cheapest. You can upgrade it to an anti-vehicle weapon in Tier 2 should the need arise. And then of course here, just the control on the Warboss is a very good way of stopping him because that allows a single unit, the Havocs, to be able to counter the Warboss, whereas in that previous engagement that we saw happened up here, it took 3 different squads just to force the Warboss off the field between both Heretic squads and the Chaos Space Marines. We only see a single ranged unit out of Gordian Vorenthul's Tier 1, which is common for Chaos, but the implications of this are that he is going to have relatively low range damage for kiting and focus firing a tanky single entity like the Warboss. And again, that just explains more and more why the Havoc is a fairly common purchase and makes sense here. Of course, at this point, Crewfinity, I'm pretty sure he saw the Havoc. We have the Storm. Whether he saw it or not, we've got the Storm Boys, which are a pretty good counter to the Havoc. Storm Boys do a huge amount of power melee damage, so they are incredibly threatening to Havocs, which have power armor. These Heretics, I was going to say, I don't know if they want to be... right now, they're not getting shot at because line of sight is being blocked, or at least I thought it was. Or maybe the Sluggers just don't care. Sluggers only use aiming once the Heretics actually get into range, but Doomblast was actually already used on the Storm Boys to slow them down, so he wasn't actually able to trap the Shooter Boys, and that ends up being a 1 engagement for Crewfinity. I think just in terms of what units were available on the field at that time, I think that was never going to be a winning engagement for Gordian Vorenthul. Might have just been looking to buy some time for his power farm, which unfortunately still looks like it will be bashed entirely. Only the single generator left and a node. There's the node. I don't think the single generator even makes it out of here alive. Like, as if the single generator can move. It's going to be focused down, and that will be a full power farm killed. It's a full retreat from Crewfinity, but the damage is very much done already, and it's a big win for him. Even losing that single model there is not a big deal at all. Very much a win for him, taking down those 2 generators and the node. Very much the strength of the Orcs in this matchup. Or, well, not in this matchup, really. Just the strength of Orcs, period. Because you have those shooters that have one of the higher range DPS values of any Tier 1 squad in the game. They are very, very good for bashing. And Orcs, just on average, have higher kind of threat to bashing the generators in the early game than most other races. Certainly compared to Chaos head-to-head, that's true. And then our Chaos Lord right here has a Combi Flamer. So this will give him another ranged weapon. Does make your Chaos Lord a little bit more of a ranged unit than a melee unit, but will help kind of with what I said before, focusing down that Warboss just as another sort of source of range damage that can focus him down. Angry Bit's going to be picked up next. These are very common warrior choices for the Warboss. Although the Warboss definitely has a number of viable builds, but this is definitely a very common one. It's early tankiness as well as disruptiveness. All right, nice bait. Getting the Storm Boys to jump on the Chaos Space Marines means that they're right in the suppression arc of the Havocs. Oh no, Chaos Lord is taking quite a bit of damage on the approach. Havocs are trying to set up. The Chaos Lord, though, might have to go pretty soon himself and needs to be really, really careful. The shooters are going to get suppressed, so that means the Chaos Lord will be okay, but that did feel like a little bit of a close call. Also felt like a little bit of a staggered approach to me, where the Chaos Lord was really just approaching a little bit by himself at first. I think if the movement had been a little bit more coordinated, where the Havoc had come up more in sync with the Chaos Lord, it could have set up earlier and suppressed the Shooter Boys earlier. And again, I'm kind of nitpicking the little bits of micro where in the end, Gordian won that engagement anyway, but I think there's a world in which he wins that engagement without having to retreat the Chaos Lord. Anyway, looks like we have some dead sluggers on the floor here, but also a full health squad of sluggers. Warboss exploring the map. Gonna see that there's now a full generator farm. Tech lead for Crewfinity. Doesn't have a whole lot of resources in the bank, though, so we don't see a Tier 2 unit being purchased just yet. Gordian's still going there, and he probably just purchased a Blood Crusher. Yeah, Blood Crusher immediately after that. Kind of saw the Blood Crusher value subtracted from the... basically just from Gordian's available resources. Blood Crusher is also something that can be very, very powerful against the Warboss, especially given that the Warboss has gone for this more aggressive build with the Angry Bits. When the Warboss does this, he's looking to close the gap with the Now I'm Angry ability, which is good for the Blood Crusher, which wins quite handily against a Warboss, unless it upgrades to the Claw, which he actually can still do that. But certainly with no weapon upgrade, the Blood Crusher counters the Warboss pretty hard. Harder than anything that Gordian Vorenthul currently has. And the Blood Crusher definitely does quite a bit more than that. So the Claw's going to come anyway. So on the one hand, we could say now the Blood Crusher doesn't counter the Warboss, because Warboss is going to get that Power Claw. Heavy melee only does half damage to vehicles, but we do see the Blood Crusher not the tankiest of vehicles, and this Warboss can be quite tanky himself. And of course, as a Warboss, he can use his globals on himself. And if he uses both of them, use your Choppas and Ard Boys. Oh god, he's gonna let himself die here though. If he uses both of them, oh no! Not a good retreat path. Oh god, so lucky not to lose him there. If he actually uses both of his globals on himself, then he can actually be quite dangerous to the Blood Crusher. Blood Crusher, I'm sure, is still going to be quite useful, unless it is kills quickly, which sometimes is the case. We see right now the Blood Crusher is at least allowing Gordian Vorenthul to kind of create space. He's just moving forward with the Blood Crusher. There currently isn't a hard counter for it. The closest thing to that hard counter would be the Warboss with the Power Claw. Next closest would be the Storm Boys. But Storm Boys have to be a lot more concerned about losing models trying to fight the Blood Crusher. Blood Crusher will be pulled back, and here comes the Death Dread. Feel like the Tier 2 unit purchase out of Crewfinity took a lot more time than Gordian Vorenthul, in spite of the fact that he got to Tier 2 first. Of course, that just means that he chose to focus on upgrades, such as that Power Claw we mentioned, also the knob on the Storm Boys. Did he get any other? He's got knobs on the Shooter Boys, but that comes in Tier 1. And we also have a Slugga knob as well, so he really prioritized the upgrades over the unit. Alright. I think now, actually, now that we have both the Storm Boys as well as the Warboss with the Power Claw, if those two units are together, the Blood Crusher is countered and does not want to mess around with that. So that's why we really see just the full pullback. More counters coming out. Chaos Lord fully upgraded. Blood Maul really focusing on the melee countering of being able to use that Sweeping Doom. Not using it against the Warboss here, even though he could. Probably wants to save it more for the Storm Boys. But now the Warboss not doing anything because he has been caught by the Drain Life ability from the Mantle of Hate. Nice single target control for the Chaos Lord. Also does allow him to regenerate life from whatever unit he targets. Very good against commanders just for basically keeping them in place. Havoc is going to be upgraded with the Las Cannon pretty much on reaction to seeing this Death Dread. Now it's going to be moved over by the Speed Worship. Needs some support though, otherwise the Shooter Boys are going to focus it down. And the Death Dread just moves on out of there. Havoc has kind of been shown here. This is going to be an interesting engagement. We're going to see the Heretics be able to counter-initiate against the Storm Boys. Storm Boys actually in a huge amount of trouble now. Hit by Wailing Doom. Heretics kills on retreat. I don't think the squad goes down. No, the knob goes down. That's actually super, super worrying for him. It looks like he's going to get them out of there with a single model. Or is he? Oh my god, they were down to literally one, and the Chaos Space Marines either stopped shooting or they just barely managed to get out of range. Meanwhile, the Death Dread is looking to finish off the Havocs, but doesn't make it happen. Meanwhile, it looks like something else is happening over here. Just generators being taken down by the Shooter Boys, while little skirmishes occur in various parts of the map. We're going to see yet another generator go down, and this is definitely something that is... of course, generator bashes matter the most the earlier they are in the game, but we do see that it's just a persistent issue and a persistent challenge whenever you are fighting against orcs, that anytime you win an engagement where you are forced off the field, they can just punish you very, very hard with a generator bash. Generally better than most other races. You know, even though we're in Tier 2, Gordian Vorenthul himself, like, even if he did get a full engagement win where he could move up to the power farm, his ability to bash the generators would be much, much slower than Crewfinity. Crewfinity now with the double Death Dread. This is looking a little rough for Gordian Vorenthul. Where is the Havoc is way too close, so it's going to need to retreat out of there. And that's just going to give more free reign to the Death Dread. The node's going to be taken down for whatever it matters. We're going to see a second Havoc. Second Havoc is rather interesting. I'm actually concerned about how well that's even going to work. And there's even the question of what is he even going for? Is he going for another las cannon? Is he going for an autocannon? He cancels the Havoc and goes for the Plague Marines. I'm going to say that I think this is the better choice. The double Havoc is the harder anti-vehicle counter, but keeping two Havocs out on the field for a long time is quite a bit tougher because the Havocs need to be immobile to be firing, and also because they are quite a bit squishier. Plague Marine's not going to be as damaging, but they are a lot more durable, they can kite, and they are a lot less threatened if something like the Storm Boys jump on them. It's interesting. For most of this game, I've been feeling more... To me, it has felt like Crewfinity has had more of an edge. But at the moment, it is Gordian Vorenthul with over a 100-point victory lead. Chaos Lord just getting super focused down. This is definitely not going to be a one engagement for Gordian, or is it? He does bring in the Plague Marines that puts the Death Dread under a lot more threat. They are snaring. This even allows the Havoc to potentially stay out on the field, while the Blood Crusher is putting in the deeps on the Death Dread. At least the first Death Dread. Unfortunately, the second Death Dread is going to make things a lot harder. I think the Havoc can't stay out on the field anymore now. He's going to try to hard commit, and he does manage to take out one of the Death Dreads. So one of the Death Dreads is gone. Blood Crusher is still here. So I think the Plague Marine purchase paid off already. He ends up retreating them, and I think at this point he had to. And he's still going to get the Blood Crusher out of there. Now, this is kind of one of the Orc challenges. This Blood Crusher is actually getting a lot of value. It's stayed alive a long time so far. Yeah, I mean, if we're on our way to Tier 3 now, that means the Blood Crusher lived about as long as it's expected to. Blood Crushers come Tier 3 are much, much easier to kill, so it's often kind of expected that by Tier 3, you're probably not going to keep the Blood Crusher alive, and even if you try to, sometimes it ends up being more trouble than it's worth. But we also see the Orcs as a race that does not have a targeted snare ability for vehicles. They can slow vehicles with stun bombs from stick bombers, which we don't even have that unit out on the field. But even that's a skill shot, and it's a pretty slow one. You know, you compare that to, well, here we have both Havocs as well as Plague Marines, which they can just target and hit a vehicle and then snare. So Tier 3 for both players. I was about to say kind of amazing for Tier 3 for Gordian, given that he's been bashed quite a bit, and he's going to continue to be bashed, which does make life a little bit hard for him. But at the same time, Gordian's moving out onto the map, and he's about to get a triple cap. Triple cap when he already has now a more than 150 victory point advantage. It's going to make things pretty tough. So we're going to see the knobs. That's more or less a hard counter to the Death Dread. Sorry, the Blood Crusher. The Blood Crusher can one time fear the knobs away, but the knobs most likely, without like a Tzeentch Chaos Space Marine squad, the knobs are not going to take enough damage during that time for them to really be scared of that. They can just get back up and then go after the Blood Crusher again, and then the Blood Crusher would have to use the charge to get out. So the Blood Crusher can definitely stay alive against the knobs, or at least it can get away from the knobs. But wherever the knobs are, the Blood Crusher will struggle to get value. That being said, the knobs aren't here. So for now, the Blood Crusher still feels like it's getting a ton of value. Relatively unsupported here. Even fears away the Warboss so that he can't even capture the point. And using that cooldown even just buys him more time where the victory points are ticking down in his favor. Now over 200 in his favor. Might even buy time. He won't stop the decap, but it might be enough to stop the full cap. Drain life. That is really threatening the Warboss. Knocks him away, so the Warboss is going to be safe, but it still forces him off the field, and he doesn't even get the cap. So knobs are here, unupgraded. They are feared away by the Blood Crusher. So even during all this time, it's good stalling by Gordian Vorenthul. And for the moment, he isn't, well, he's not taking victory points down in his favor, but he's still delaying victory points being ticked down for Crewfinity, just by delaying even during a 1-to-1. All right, meanwhile, Havocs are going to get caught here. We're also seeing the Chaos Space Marines at the moment. Ooh, the Chaos Dreadnought, that's kind of a bold one. I guess the purpose of the Chaos Dreadnought is to upgrade it to the Mark of Khorne, to use as a counter against the Knobs. Knobs going to be upgraded with Meaner and Greener. I was personally going to say maybe at this point put a Mark of Tzeentch on the Chaos Space Marines so that they can melt the Knobs. And that's actually still an option. He actually almost has the resources to do that, but chances are... The Dreadnought does not serve much of a purpose without an upgrade, I feel. Yeah, like Mark of Khorne immediately. I think, like I would say, if you got a Dread at this point against Knobs and no vehicle and didn't go Mark of Khorne, I would almost say that's just like trolling. Whereas getting the Mark of Khorne against the Knobs, honestly, I'm going to say it's not my favorite choice here, but it is a thing, and it does make sense. All right, he's going to go for it here. Knob's just going to move back. That does mean, of course, that, you know, he's just going to see that, and he'll be ready to prepare for it. So what is Crewfinity? Oh, you know what? This is pretty rough for Crewfinity because he does not have adequate anti-vehicle response to the Dreadnought. You know, he's in Tier 3. I guess he wants to wait for a looted tank. No, or maybe he was waiting for a looted tank. But I think he may have just realized that he needs something fast because he's running out of time. And waiting for the looted... If he waits for the looted tank, he might not be able to get back into the game. You know, and now that we see the Chaos Dreadnought is upgraded with the Mark of Khorne, I still personally want to see the Mark of Tzeentch, because that is something that will just make the Knobs a lot less effective. And there is the Mark of Tzeentch. Okay, right in the middle of the fight. Unfortunately, kind of a staggered engagement for Crewfinity. Sluggas are forced off. This is still a tough one for Crewfinity, trying to push into this. Where's the Warboss? Yeah, I was going to say, like, I feel like he needs the Warboss, and he might even try to have the Warboss come in at an angle, but he's just going so slowly. Alright, he's going to engage without the Warboss, probably just have the Warboss or the Storm Boys go for a back cap. Manages to force off the Chaos Lord, so he buys a little bit of time for himself. That slows the cap. Chaos Space Marines will take it over. Knobs are forced off, though. Take out the... Oh, no, he doesn't take out the Chaos Lord. A little bit of a missed opportunity there. I think in part because he was just not expecting the Chaos Lord to be coming through there. He kind of had a game plan of, you know, he's going for the victory points there. Oh, God. The Storm Boys. All right, the Storm Boys don't go down, but they lose so many models there. Heretic Squad might go down here if they're not... They're down to a single model, which is retreating out of there. Heretic Squad that I believe, yeah, does not have an aspiring champion. Tank Buster Barrage will be completely missing on the Chaos Space Marines, but the Chaos Space Marines getting super low. But if they can turn and focus on this Shooter Boy squad that has less than 100 hit points, they might be able to trade it out. They're not going to take out the Warboss. That's not happening. Cleared away. Blood Crusher goes down, but honestly, at this point, I don't even think that matters that much. That Blood Crusher lived longer than it was expected to. Ooh, one of those Shooter Boy squads going to go down for Crewfinity. Not realizing, you know, it's just a panic moment. Could have had the second Shooter Squad try to take over that capture and then retreat out the low health one. Unfortunately for him, that is one dead Shooter Squad. It has been a relatively low-kill game in terms of squad wipes. Mostly vehicles have been killed. Yeah, I don't think Gordian Vorenthul has lost any squads. Crewfinity, I think that was even the first squad loss of the entire game. It's only been vehicles otherwise that have been taken down. It's a triple cap, though, for Gordian Vorenthul. So this could be Crewfinity's last engaged attempt. He's got the tank busters. They need to be focusing on the Death Dread, rather on the Dreadnought. Dreadnought, I think, is actually now reasonably going to die. Blood Rage has been used, trying to get as much damage as possible during that time, and the Dread will go down. And this is actually a lost engagement for Gordian Vorenthul. But so little time, which is why we see the Sluggers just making a beeline for the natural victory point of Gordian Vorenthul. Double tank busters coming out. Didn't even realize that this was a 2 squads of tank busters. Oh no! That retreat. That's not a timely retreat. Especially since one of those squads really did not have to retreat. So this is definitely a little bit of like kind of a micro mistake here. And again, it's tough when you're in the moment and you want to try to get 1 squad out. And sometimes you just accidentally retreat 2 squads. It does happen. I've done it before. But I'm concerned about that because if the Predator pushes in like now, the tank busters are not close enough to do anything about it. However, Gordian Vorenthul is still kind of regrouping here, still trying to get health and regen on the rest of his units. But Crewfinity pretty much has no room for error at this point. He needs to hold the left side of this map for the rest of this game, whether that ends with his win or Gordian's. He just literally needs to hold this side of the map for the rest of the game. He cannot give it up. So we're going to see the Mark of Nurgle Predator. Mark of Nurgle Predator is tanky. It does regen its health. So I think this is a good choice. It's the basically in this kind of situation, it's the Predator that is the most difficult to force off. Also even has melee resistance, which makes it a little bit more resistant to the Knob Squad. Nevertheless, it's still going to be driving into a Knob Squad and 2 tank busters. What I don't like Crewfinity pushing in though. He needs to just let Gordian Vorenthul push. Because it's up to Gordian Vorenthul to make a move to decide whether or not, to basically decide who's going to win this game. Like, if Gordian does nothing, then Crewfinity will just start passively winning. Gordian's trying to make something happen, but he's going to give up on this attempt. Havocs don't do anything at the moment. Havocs should be backcapping, basically, but there's not even really much to really that you need to backcap, I suppose. This is really rough, though. The tank busters are right now the most important unit for Crewfinity. However, that could be replaced by the looted tank once that comes out. He's going to buy himself some time by having the Warboss capture this victory point. Normally, the way the late game of this map works is that you just control the left side. But I think Crewfinity just realizes he needs to give at least this one up temporarily because he had to end up retreating a lot of his units. Havoc's moving forward. Even the Shooter Boys guarding the possibility of the Havocs going, or rather the Shooter Boys, yeah, guarding the possibility of the Havocs going for a cap. Shooter Boys, though, about to be shot at by the Chaos Predator. Crewfinity's moving out kind of half strength just because he knows time's running out. He also sees that his Warboss is about to get accosted. Warboss is going to do some damage to the Chaos Space Marines, but then he's going to get hit. Oh, these Chaos Space Marines getting a little close. Meanwhile, what's happening over here? Knobs are going to move forward. Probably going to get suppressed, though. No, they do not get suppressed. Now they get suppressed. I think one of those Heretic squads is going down, though. It's actually just going to retreat. And the Knobs are super low on hit points, but they are catching this Plague Marine squad right here. And this is Crewfinity holding on for the moment. As long as he's holding on, probably should retreat the Storm Boys. They're too low to be of much further use. Man, and it's just so tricky with the tank busters who are so pivotal at the moment. If anything, I think the Sluggers should be repairing the looted tank. And a different unit should be capturing this point. He retreats the tank busters. They are very important at this time. Oh, one unit is given right there. Havoc is about to set up. This is actually looking really close now. Stormboy's going to jump in. This is super risky. Stormboys, I think, now need to get out. They made the Havoc retreat, which is as much as they were going to achieve there. Knobs are still moving forward, but the Knobs decide to retreat. Crewfinity is running out of resources here, and by resources I really just mean units. I think this is it for Crewfinity. Oh, yeah. Looted tank goes down. Warboss was killed over here. That's got to be it. He's not going to be able to stop this cap. Held on as long as he could and made a game out of it. But that's definitely going to be Gordian Vorenthul taking this game. Yeah, he calls the GG even as he moves his tank busters up, because that's definitely it. that'll be it. That's the victory to Gordian Vorenthul. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good night.